so that we can keep moving forward, I'm going to go to the 10 questions that the Stop Stuckart website posted, just because I have them and I think it's important that we answer all questions. And I encourage, when I'm done, anybody to ask me any questions, because I don't agree with my wife on 100% of issues. We're going to disagree. But if we can at least agree that we've got problems that need people representing our district, I think we can all get there together. The first question. The Spokane City Council passed an ordinance that prevents police officers and city employees from enforcing our federal immigration law. Do you support sanctuary cities that refuse to cooperate with federal immigration authorities? The first part of this question is absolutely not true. We didn't say you're not collaborating and you're not participating in enforcing federal immigration law. What it says is that we will not have a biased policing organization, and you will not stop people for these reasons, and you cannot ask that solely based on it alone. This is the policy, and it's been the policy for the last 10 years of the Spokane Sheriff's Department and the Spokane Police Department. All we did was take an existing policy and make it law. And it's worked because people are reporting more crimes. Because if they don't know that it's in place and those policies are in place, you must make it into law in order to protect our citizens. Because if somebody, I know a teacher who had a problem student and went to the student, what was wrong? There was domestic violence in the house. The teacher talked to the mother, and she was not reporting the domestic violence because she was afraid of being deported. Once the teacher that lived down the road from me understood what the law was and we talked about it, she told the mother, she reported the domestic violence, and the student is actually doing better. Those are real stories about how we treat people, actually decreasing crime. I would also like, and our police chief would also like, to be focused on property crime in the city of Spokane and not focused on enforcing federal immigration laws. Now, sanctuary cities is very interesting because if you read Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General's memo, he references the federal law 1373. We're not violating 1373, but if you look at some websites, Spokane is listed as a sanctuary city. There is no actual definition of what a sanctuary city is, and that's why we should be talking about immigration reform with a path to citizenship and a guest worker program that works for everybody, instead of us sitting there worrying about who we're going to pull money for as political punishment. Question number 2, you released a video on Facebook Friday claiming that we need to move towards a single-payer, government-run healthcare system. What is your plan for implementing a single-payer healthcare system? How do you plan to pay for it? And will that come out of my pocket? Well, every single person in this room experiences health issues. You do, your parents do, your brothers and sisters do. If you have children, your children will experience health problems. It is a problem we all share. But I'm going to tell you my story. In 2008, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was stage 3 and very aggressive. We had 3 tests turned down by that insurance company because some actuary was sitting there saying it's actually not beneficiary for her to actually get those MRIs and to get those hereditary tests. So I wrote an editorial in 2008 calling to get insurance companies and profit out of our health care. Now I'm running for Congress, and 2 months ago, the newest hereditary test for breast cancer, we just got a letter from the insurance company when her doctor recommended that we get it because it's going to impact my wife's future health. It got turned down. She still hasn't had it. That is utterly ridiculous when we all have those same problems, that we are putting profit before people. But the real question is, well, is that going to impact my pocketbook? Well, right now we have the highest healthcare costs of any developed nation. And we are the only developed nation without a single-payer system. So yes, your taxes may go up, but the companies that are, the 70% of companies that are offering healthcare benefits, the city of Spokane, we employ 2,000 people. Our highest benefit cost, 20% of what our wage cost is healthcare benefits. That's going to be wiped off the book. Those 20% of costs, they're going to go back to companies. That's going to benefit companies because they can compete in a global marketplace, but that will also increase wages for people in order to pay those increased taxes. And the overall cost of the system will shrink in half if we work together. Now, do I have the answer of implementation step 1 through 10? No, this is going to be a heavy lift, but we need somebody there fighting to try to get us to that heavy lift, or we're not going to get anywhere, and we need to be the bold party and the bold people that say this is what we believe, these are our shared values, and we're going to fight for them. In 2014, you forwarded an email regarding legal action the city would take against the local firefighters union, one of your major campaign donors, violating the trust of the people you represent. How do you claim to be above the influence of political donations, and how do we know you won't act unethically if elected to Congress? Yes, I forwarded an email to another city employee, and I should not have done it. I admitted my mistake. I went to the Ethics Commission of the city of Spokane. I received a fine, and I said I was sorry to the citizens of Spokane. Kathy, on the other hand, had a 422-page report written that said she probably violated it from the Congressional Ethics Office. And you know what she did? Oh, we got control of the presidency, Congress, and the House of Representatives and the Senate. Let's try to eliminate the Congressional Ethics Office. Can you imagine the headlines in the city of Spokane if my proposal was after I'd been found guilty of an ethics violation to actually eliminate the Ethics Commission? No, because we all make mistakes. We all err. We all screw up, but it's about how you move forward, and I screwed up, and I'm sorry. But I want to tell you my story about money and politics. 2011, the day before the primary, I get a call from a lobbyist. He says, I represent X company, and the CEO really thinks you're going to win. And, we have 5 people that want to max out, and at the time it was $1,600. And so that would have been $8,000. I only had $40,000 in the bank, so that would have been 20% of my fundraising up to that point. And his words to me were, well, but I heard you support the Spokane Tribe's Economic Development Project out on the West Plains. And I got really excited. I was like, yeah, since 2006, I've known tribal members. They got 50% poverty rates. We need the economic growth on the West Plains and in the tribe. It'll help us. And you know what he said? Call me back if you change your mind, and hung up the phone. I didn't take that money, and I did not change my mind, but I understand how money influences politics, and I'll get into more on that a little later. Number 4, on your website, you claim to support all amendments to the Constitution. Yes, I do. At a city council meeting regarding greater protections for our students at our schools, you stated I would never bring something forward that involved guns for somebody other than police officers. How can we trust you to support our Second Amendment rights? Well, first, let me state that they didn't add the last 2 words, which was I wouldn't involve somebody other than police officers in schools, because what I said was that I would not sponsor or support an ordinance that allowed the resource officers to be armed in our schools. And the reason for that is Central Valley does a really good job. They have police officers in the schools, and I would support that because they've gone to police academy. I support the Second Amendment. Target practice, that's great. Hunting, please bring me some jerky. But I do not support allowing somebody who is on the terrorist no-fly list to have a gun. I don't think that's reasonable. I think our conversation on this issue has been poisoned to the point where we have a terrorist no-fly list. You cannot get onto an airplane, but it's okay if you have a gun out in our society. To me, that's really just whacked out. I believe that if you've been convicted of domestic violence, where most gun violence occurs, that you shouldn't be allowed to have a gun. But there are reasonable discussions that we can have, and I support everybody's right and the Second Amendment. Question number 5. In a 2015 city council meeting regarding your immigration ordinance, you gavelled the meeting to an early close and turned your back on concerned citizens. Now you criticize our current congresswoman. Don't you find that hypocritical, and why wouldn't you allow people who disagree with you to speak your mind? I gavelled the meeting to a close because the city council has actual rules of procedure. I gave 2 warnings and said this meeting will be closed if you don't stop shouting out and interrupting others, because if we did that every meeting, it would be utter chaos. So after 2 warnings, I gavelled it to a close. But luckily, I've had over 500 meetings at our Monday meetings at 3:30 and at 6 p.m. that have been on air that I've led that follow those same rules and procedures of decorum. And out of those 500 meetings, I've had 1 that went south. But the others, everybody's respected the rules. I listen to people every day in my job at the city council. Every Monday night, people come down in open forum and get to speak for 30 minutes before and after the meeting. I enjoy them, even if I disagree with them. And the public testifies on every piece of legislation that we pass. And I'm here right now answering 10 questions from a group that has described me in some very unfavorable terms. Swear words have been used in the past. And I will end this question by asking you, what kind of listening has our current representative been doing? Question number 6. I've heard from many business owners and read many stories about businesses affected by the minimum wage hike. Do you support increasing the minimum wage federally? And what will you do when businesses close and people lose their jobs? I support increasing the minimum wage because I support what all of the studies that I've read, all of the comparisons between even state to state cities have shown, which is the border cities even increased in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. One of the best studies I wrote said the economy actually improved. I support minimum wage increase because since January, the economy in the city of Spokane has actually been improving faster than other areas. And part of that is the sick leave law and the minimum wage law are not killing our businesses. But I am cognizant of the small business owner that has to sit at night and balance their books, but also wants to pay their employees a good wage. And that's why on the sick leave law, what we did was we actually indexed it for people with 10 or fewer employees and 5 or more. But when you look at what they're talking about doing on sick leave on the state level, it passed at just a level. So we had those conversations, and I understand those, and we need to work together. But that's why we need an elected representative that's going to be listening to the people of the 5th District so that we can actually move forward together and actually listen to each other. Number 7, you signed on to Initiative 464 last election that would have required public financing of campaigns. Do you really think taxpayers should pay for campaigns? So the first thing, it was actually Initiative 1464. I don't think they know when they were typing they may have made an error. But Initiative 1464 would have set up a voucher system by closing it and paid for it by closing a tax loophole. Now that voucher system would have meant for state legislative races, you would have got 3 vouchers for $50 each. And you would have sent them to the legislator of your choice, and the legislator could opt in or opt out of that system. But what it would have done is drowned out money in politics, because I believe truly that you have a problem when the House acts last week to allow telecom industry to sell your privacy information, yet at the same time takes $25,000 from Comcast and $75,000 from the telecom industry. Because even if the decision isn't made because of money, when you have money in politics, the perception of corruption is there, and that's why people don't trust government. And until we get to the point where we trust government to work for us, the perception is all off, and we need to get money out of politics. Now, I will admit, I took 2015, my city council president race, I took $500 from Comcast, but I will be sponsoring an ordinance to prohibit any company in the city of Spokane from selling your information without your consent, and that'll be done in the next 2 weeks. Number 8, according to the Inlander, you admitted to using marijuana in the past and have said you plan to use it again. Marijuana is currently federally illegal. Do you plan to continue using marijuana if elected to Congress? The people of Washington State and those in the majority in the Spokane County and the city of Spokane voted to legalize marijuana. Yes, I've smoked marijuana. But I don't know the rules, and I couldn't find out if, as a federal employee, it's actually illegal to use marijuana. So I look forward to being in the position where I find that out, because if it's illegal for a federal employee to use marijuana, I will gladly give up marijuana in order to be representing you in the 5th Congressional District. Following the resignation of Spokane Police Chief Frank Straub, Laura McAloon was put forth as the leading candidate for the city attorney. She withdrew her name after characterizing you as toxic and a bully. Do you typically bully women to get your way? And is that how you plan to operate if you are elected? Laura is one of the best lawyers I have ever met. I've had the opportunity to see Laura McAloon twice in action representing the city. She goes 100% to bat for her clients. She's tough and she's smart. But Frank Straub, and when that whole issue was going on where people were actually withholding public documents until after an election, which is shown to be true, that was a trying time for the entire city government. And I regret that she felt I was a bully. I'm a very, very honest person. I'm very blunt. I like to be transparent. And I was brutally honest in a conversation with her. But I did not think it was bullying, but I regret that she felt it was bullying. I get to work with 4 of the strongest women every day on the city council, and we push, they push, we disagree, that's how it works, but that's how politics works. But I'm willing to move forward, and I hope everybody else is. Number 10, under your leadership, Spokane City Council adopted a mandatory sick and safe leave policy. This piece of legislation was held off until after the 2015 elections. Did you wait to pass it because it was viewed as politically unpopular? And do you think government mandates like this make it tough on current and new businesses in Spokane? Well, first, I was the one that pushed to try to pass it before the election because I wanted to run on that issue in 2015. So instead, when I didn't have 4 votes to pass it, I didn't have 5 because of the veto, but I didn't have 5 votes to pass it. So it got dumped into January. But we all ran on that issue, and they ran against me on that issue, and they said, Ben, we don't support paid sick leave, and our business owners don't support it. And I won, and Councilmember Kinnear won, and Councilmember Stratton won, and that was their biggest issue. But we won on it because our own internal polling showed that over 65% of the citizens of Spokane support paid sick leave because nobody should have to choose between paying for their rent or staying home sick for the day. Any regulation is a last resort, and if all businesses had offered it, yes, we wouldn't have had to pass the law, but unfortunately there were 30% of businesses not offering the sick leave law. So yes, any regulation like that can be tough, but that's why we tried to work with business owners. We had the Home Builders Association and the Restaurant Association were on our working group. Our working group was trying to pull us all in the same direction, and we may not have agreed with every single point at the end, but that's how you work towards policy solutions. I want to work and listen to all parties when in Congress. I want to work for you. I'm a hard worker, and with that, I'll open it up to your questions. Thank you very much. I'm Ben Stuckart, a candidate for the House of Representatives from Eastern Washington's 5th Congressional District, and I approve this message.